Hey, everybody. First off, just wanted to say thank you to anyone who has subscribed or anyone that is watching and enjoying the content. It means a lot. So, this channel is primarily about vibe coding. And we're going to be doing a lot of vibe coding live, building agents business and also a telematics video business. But another thing I want to do on this channel is anytime I see AI topics or an AI interview that I think is meaningful, I like to give my high level commentary on it and share it with the channel. So today I have an interview with Dwarkesh Patel, Ryan Patel, and Satya Nadella. Dwarkesh and Ryan are AI journalists. Dwarkesh has a podcast. Ryan has a boutique research firm. And Satya Nadella is the CEO of Microsoft. And so they have a really good back and forth, I think, about scaffolding, agents, observability, LLMs, operating systems. And so I'll just go ahead and get into the interview and give my commentary on it.
It's not just about GitHub, but fundamentally about Office and all the other software that Microsoft offers, which is that one vision you could have about how AI proceeds is that, look, the models are going to keep being hobbled, and you'll need this direct, visible observability all the time. And another vision is, over time, these models they're doing tasks that take 2 minutes. In the future, they'll be doing tasks that next year, maybe tasks that take 10, 30 minutes. In the future, maybe they're doing days worth of work autonomously. And then the model companies are charging thousands of dollars maybe for access to really a coworker, which
Okay, so immediately Dwarkesh brings up this idea of a long running agent, right? So today we have agents that run anywhere between, 5 seconds to 10 minutes, right? And we have products like GitHub Copilot, which is a Microsoft product, and Cursor that really set up the scaffolding and set up the context awareness to help you stitch together this reasoning. So the models aren't perfect, right? And they need kind of some guardrails and sometimes some guidance, right? And so these scaffolding companies are really in great position to help these intelligence companies, or these companies that are building the models or building the intelligence, distribute that intelligence in a way that really maximizes productivity. So immediately Dwarkesh starts to talk about long running agents. So and really I think some of the thinking is that, if we get these long running agents, right, the scaffolding will become less and less, and the tooling will become less and less important over time, and that value will shift to the model. And I think Satya Nadella does a really good job of answering this
could
question.
use any UI to communicate with their human and so forth and migrate between platforms. So if we were getting closer to that, why aren't the model companies that are just getting more and more profitable the ones that are taking all the margin? Why is the place where the scaffolding happens, which becomes less and less relevant as AI has become more capable, going to be that important? And that goes to Office as it exists now versus coworkers that are just doing knowledge work
I think that's a great
autonomously and
point. I mean,
stuff.
I think for example, this is where
So again, and before we get into Satya's answer, so I think one important thing to remember here too is that Microsoft has, deep channels, deep enterprise channels, relationships, partnerships, right? And they've built kind of enterprise partnerships, and they're deeply integrated, with their office tooling products at the enterprise level and the consumer level, right? And so there's many layers to this. You have one layer, I guess, which is the horizontal layer, which is intelligence, which is getting really kind of metered usage, just like electricity and water. And then you have really the scaffolding or the hyperscalers that are kind of building the scaffolding. And in this case, a company like Microsoft has scaffolding and tooling, right? And tooling that they've built with enterprise knowledge that is not always public knowledge over many different over many years, right? And so they're kind of positioned at this layer where they're helping with compute and helping with architecture and tooling. But some of the thinking is that if the model gets so intelligent that it doesn't need to use Excel, that it can just build Excel just in time for the problem. But as Satya, as this discussion goes deeper, you start to understand that that's not the most token efficient method, is to just wipe out all the tooling. The tooling and the infrastructure and the scaffolding does become important. And so I'll go ahead and let Satya. Satya does a good job answering this here.
Does all the value migrate just to the model, or does does it get split between the scaffolding and the model and what have you? I think that time will tell, but my fundamental point also is the incentive structure gets clear, right? Which is, if you take let's take information work, or take even coding. Already, in fact, one of the favorite settings I have in GitHub Copilot is called Auto, right? Which will just optimize. In fact, I buy a subscription. The Auto one will start picking and optimizing for what I'm asking it to do.
So the auto option in products like GitHub Copilot and also Cursor, which are these scaffolding tools, help you decide when and why to use a model, right? So kind of what it looks like, the way that it's playing out, is all of these models are really seem to be better in different domains or different verticals. And they're really becoming like a commodity, like toothpaste, right? And because some of them are good at different things, right? You really need to be using different ones for different reasons, right? And so this auto option starts to use context and use this tooling to help understand, okay, when and why should I be using this reasoning model versus that reasoning model? And that's really where you start to understand that these scaffolding and tooling companies have, deep data sets, right, of really what works and what doesn't work, really at the lowest level, and they're the most kind of have the most intimate relationship with the end customer, right? The intelligence companies kind of one layer back. So immediately Satya brings up the idea of auto and swapping in and out different models for different reasons.
And it could even be fully autonomous, and it could sort of arbitrage the tokens available across multiple models to go get a task done. So if that is that means that if you take that argument, the commodity there will be models. And especially with open source models, you can pick a checkpoint and you can take a bunch of your data and you're seeing it, right? I think all of us will start, whether it's from Cursor or from Microsoft, you'll start seeing some in-house models even, which will...
Yeah, so we recently saw the in-house model Composer 1. And so this is an example where a company like Cursor, who's distributing the intelligence for companies like Anthropic and OpenAI and setting up that tooling, was able to take some of those learnings by being at this layer that's closer to the customer, take some of that learning and use that to build an in-house model based on top of open source that really is very comparable to some of these frontier models in terms of intelligence and speed. And so just an idea of really some of the value that these scaffolding companies are bringing.
Then you'll offload most of your tasks to it. So I think that one argument is, if you win the scaffolding, which today is dealing with all the hobbling problems or the jaggedness of these intelligence problems, which you kind of have to. If you win that, then you will vertically integrate yourself into the model, just because you will have the liquidity of the data and what have you, and there are enough and more checkpoints that are going to be available. That's the other thing, right? So structurally, I think...
Again, the data and the relationship really with the customer. And again, Microsoft, a lot of the data is private, right? So, some of this this public data that's available for pre-training is finite, right? But Microsoft has built this enterprise tooling over many years and has deep understanding of some of these use cases at the enterprise level, right? And OpenAI, a company like OpenAI, has been able to kind of go direct to the consumer and unlock a lot of productivity for the consumer that way. And I think we're going to see that lead to GDP, and we'll see that over the coming years. But I think that, a company like Microsoft that has this scaffolding, a hyperscaler with this kind of structure and architecture built out and deep relationships with enterprise may be able to deliver something similar to a Composer One for enterprise company that really drives a ton of value that a big lab might not be able to do.
There will always be an open source model that will be fairly capable in the world that you could then use as long as you have something that you can use that with, which is data and a scaffolding, right? So I can make the argument that, oh my God, if you're a model company, you may have a winner's curse. You may have done all the hard work, done unbelievable innovation, except it's kind of like one copy away from that.
And we already see that. So we see the benchmarks or the leaderboards, right? Gemini comes out, they fly past OpenAI. You'll see DeepSeek releases an open source model. They're right there with the frontier model. So we can see that, and you can feel that the models are kind of better at different things. But in terms of just pure, if you just need general intelligence, it's very easy to swap one model out for another.
Being commoditized. And then the person who has the data for grounding and context engineering and the liquidity of data can then go take that checkpoint and train it. So I think the argument can be made both ways.
Unpacking sort of what you said, there's two views of the world, right? One is that models, there's so many different...
Again, the scaffolding company has the data. And that's what I think Dwarkesh and Ryan are kind of missing this a little bit. And I think some of what Satya Nadella is saying is kind of flying past them a little bit. But they're definitely believers in AGI, right? And that AGI will replace a lot of this tooling and scaffolding. And that's at least the sense that I get from this video.
Models out there, open source exists.
From this interview.
There will be differences between the models that will drive some level of, who wins and who doesn't, but the scaffolding is what enables you to win.
Yep.
The other view is that actually models are the key IP, and yes, everyone's in a tight race, and there's some, hey, I can use Anthropic or OpenAI. And
again, I think that, it shows that maybe because you're seeing kind of herds of people move between Opus and Gemini and OpenAI, that maybe the model, the key IP is not in the model, but more in the scaffolding and the tooling is kind of what it's maybe starting to seem like to me, maybe, right?
You can see this in the revenue.
And really, I think there's so much market expansion and really new markets being created that there's value capture, across this entire pipeline, all the way from the horizontal intelligence coming from the big labs to, tools like Cursor that consumers are using, right? And enterprise companies.
Charts, right? Like OpenAI's revenue started skyrocketing once they finally had a code model, similar capabilities to Anthropic, although in different ways. There's the view that like the model companies are actually the ones that garner all the margin, right? Because, if you look across this year, at least on Anthropic, their gross margins on inference went from,
Now, what's interesting is that, you can see that these big labs have huge revenue run rate, but this AI is still incredibly new, right? So we're all enterprise and consumer. We're starting to bring this intelligence into our workflow. And I think that the market's expanding and really new markets are being created. But once intelligence gets rolled out, right, you may see some of that run rate kind of taper off. And so you're seeing the value maybe shift to the models now. But after we kind of roll or distribute this intelligence to everyone, which is the idea, we may see more value kind of shift back to the scaffolding, the tooling companies, the companies that deeply understand the context. And remember, a lot of the world's data is private and not public. So just something to think about.
Well below 40% to north of 60, right? By the end of the year. The margins are expanding there despite, hey, more Chinese open source models than ever.
Yeah.
Hey, OpenAI is competitive. Hey, Google's competitive. Hey, Grok is now competitive, right? All these companies are now competitive. And yet, despite this, the margins have expanded at the model layer significantly.
Yeah.
And I think some of this, obviously, as more compute comes online, the cost of inferencing is coming down, and so that's bringing some margin expansion, and also you're just seeing new logo, right? Just new growth, right? And maybe that's you see this, and you see this margin expansion happening at the token layer, and maybe not GitHub Copilot hasn't shown that yet, but I think we're at such an early innings, right? That it's really too early to say that scaffolding that these tooling companies are going to be replaced by AGI, and that all the margin expansion is at the horizontal token, and you should focus all of your time on just trying to get to AGI with a more intelligent model and distribute the intelligence, instead of thinking about, okay, let's bring together all models, stitch them together in a scaffolding, right?
How do you think about the?
It's a great question. I think the one thing is, perhaps a few years ago, people were saying, oh, I can just wrap a model and build a successful company. And that, I think, is probably gotten debunked just because the model capabilities and with tools used in particular.
So when he says wrapper, he means like if I was a company, I could use the OpenAI API and then create a chat interface very similar to OpenAI, right? And like add a few features to it to try to bring a little bit extra value, right? Or maybe fine tune it to make it better in a certain domain. And what we've seen is that because the model intelligence is kind of scaling so fast that uh, the general intelligence is scaling. And so what you see is if you're trying to make any optimizations with a basic wrapper, that when the next model gets released, it's so much more intelligent that it almost makes your wrapper obsolete, right? So that's what he means when he talks about the wrapper.
But the interesting thing is there's no, like when I look at Office 365, let's take even this little thing we built called Excel Agent. It's interesting, right? Excel Agent is not a UI level wrapper. It's actually a model that is in the middle tier. In this case, because we have all the IP from the GPT family, we are taking that and putting.
So again, and I don't know the exact details of this deal, but I believe that Microsoft really helped OpenAI with compute at the early stages to train some of this GPT family of models. In exchange, Microsoft got a lot of that intellectual property. So Microsoft, is really able to take all of the learnings from OpenAI and start to build out this scaffolding and tooling layer using that intelligence or those learnings and that intellectual property from OpenAI, combine that with this deep enterprise tooling infrastructure, and really I think you're going to get something very powerful that will probably eventually turn into like an agent marketplace.
It into the core middle tier of the Office system to both teach it what it means to natively understand Excel, everything in it. So it's not just, hey, I just have a pixel level understanding. I have a full understanding of all the native artifacts of Excel. Both when I see it, like, because if you think about it, if I'm going to give it some reasoning task, right, I need to even fix the reasoning mistakes I make. And so that means I need to both not just see the pixels, I need to be able to see, oh, I got that formula wrong, and I need to understand that. And then, so to some degree, that's all being done.
So again, the big labs are working on these environments where the LLM can take screenshots and use tools like a human would use the tool, right? So it takes a screenshot of Excel, looks at the cell, and then does some inferencing and takes some action from there. And really, what Satya Nadella is talking about is more of a lower level kind of agent tool for the reasoning intelligence to use, and really making that as token efficient, and really kind of communicating with that reasoning agent in an extremely incredibly optimized way. And really, there's no reason to recreate the wheel, right? If we have these tools, right, there's no reason for, I don't think, the LLM to try to recreate the tool just in time. I mean, again, that doesn't seem very, very token efficient. And so Microsoft is really building this tool set for this really new agentic world, right? So these agents have tools, and not your usual interface that we're used to using, but really access to this tooling in a different fashion. So not taking a screenshot and trying to look at the cell, but really a deeper integration. And that's what Satya is talking about.
Done not at the UI wrapper level with some prompt, but it's being done in the middle tier by teaching it all the tools of Excel, right? So I'm giving it even essentially a markdown to teach it the skills of what it means to be a sophisticated Excel user. So it's a weird thing that it goes back a little bit to AI brain, right? Which is you're building not just Excel, you are now business logic in its traditional sense. You're taking the Excel business logic in the traditional sense and wrapping essentially a cognitive layer to it using this model, which knows.
Exactly. And again, what we're seeing is that the model really feels like a genius intern, right? And so you need this context awareness. And like Satya's saying, you need this cognitive wrapper with a tool set that's available for the LLM to really maximize productivity in any certain domain. And we might get to this general intelligence, but what I've seen to get to above a 70% accuracy rate in like an enterprise domain with a tool like this, you're going to need this cognitive brain wrapper wrapped around the reasoning intelligence. And that's what Satya is explaining here.
How to use the tool. So in some sense, Excel will come with an analyst bundled in and with all the tools used. That's the type of stuff that will get built by everybody. So even for the model companies, they'll have to compete, right? So if they price stuff high, guess what? If I'm a builder of a tool like this, I'll substitute you. I may use you for a while. And so as long as there's competition, there's always a winner-take-all thing, right? If there's going to be one model that is better than everybody else with mass.
So again, what it's looking like is the scaffolding product is distributing the intelligence, and the intelligence is so general in some cases that it doesn't matter which model I use. In some areas, it does matter, but it's not hard for a scaffolding company to replace your model with a different model, to build on top of your model, to use the learnings. Because remember, at the horizontal layer, you're one layer removed from the end customer. Microsoft or these scaffolding companies are closer to the end customer.
Of distance, yes, that's a winner take all. As long as there's going to be competition where there's multiple models, just like hyperscale competition, and there's an open source check, there is enough room here to go build value on top of models. But at Microsoft, the way I look at it and say is, we're going to be in the hyperscale business, which will support multiple models. We will have access to OpenAI models for 7 more years, which we will.
So again, OpenAI has access to all of this intellectual property. So going to be amazing to see. And where I think a lot of the value capture is here is in the agent marketplace. And if Microsoft can focus on agent tooling and some type of protocol for agents to communicate with each other, and they're able to use this intelligence from OpenAI, it's going to be really interesting to see what they're able to do. And I think they're positioned really, 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 really well.
Innovate on top of. So royalty, essentially, I think of ourselves as having a frontier class model that we can use and innovate on with full flexibility. And we'll build our own models with MAI. And so we will always have a model level. And then we'll build these, whether it's in security, whether it's in knowledge work, whether it's in coding or in science, we will build our own application scaffolding, which will be model forward, right? It won't be a wrapper on a model, but the model will be wrapped into the application.
I have so many questions.
So anyways, I don't want to go too much longer than 20 minutes. So if you watched this far, thank you. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And again, we'll be doing lots of vibe coding live on this channel and talking about some high-level AI topics. Thanks again for watching. If you need to contact me, you can go to bluecactus.ai. Thank you.